Welcome to Constitutional Law Series Episode 2. Today we will discuss meaning of constitution. Previously on LawMap, we dealt with etymology of the word and the link to the video is available in the description box. Now let's begin with the meaning of constitution. A constitution is a rule book for a country. To simplify this, let's take the example of a school. Global Peace School was established by a group of individuals. They collectively wrote the Code of Global Peace. The purpose of this book was to convey rules and regulations for teachers and students of that institution. It also included the selection process to secure admission into the institution, rights and duties of teachers and students, as well as goals to be achieved by the institution. So the primary objective of this document is to govern the relationship between teachers and students. In the same light, Constitution is one such document that aims at regulating the relationship between the government and the governed. Now, let's discuss the elements of a constitution. Firstly, basic principles. A principle is a basic theory that forms the foundation of something. So, principles in a constitution are those foundational values upon which the document is written upon. For example, one of the principles in the Indian Constitution is the principle of democracy. This is manifested in the forms of fundamental freedom, free and fair elections, multi-party system, rule of law, citizen participation, and independent judiciary. There are many such principles in the Indian Constitution which the makers of this document have intended for the government and the people to follow in pursuit of national goals. Secondly, structure and process of government. Government is an extremely important unit for the Constitution because the future of a country relies heavily on the social, political, and economic policy of the government. It is the government that makes laws and rules allowing the society to function smoothly. To avoid any lapse in these duties, the Constitution provides basic rules to follow in forming the structure and process of government. Let's take the example of the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution mandates a democratic government, a government elected by the people. So, the authority of a government is created by the consent of people. The second example could be separation of powers between judiciary, legislature, and the executive. While the legislature makes laws, the executive enforces the law and the judiciary will interpret the law. The Indian Constitution mandates that none of these branches must interfere in each other's departments. The third example, structuring of parliament into two houses, Lok Sabha, the House of People, and Rajya Sabha, the Council of States. Rules of this sort help in creating uniformity in governance and avoiding the government from acting arbitrarily against national interest. The third element, fundamental rights. These are basic human rights that belong to an individual. They are derived from the inherent dignity of a human person and considered inalienable in a political community. Any constitution must define these rights because individuals are an important component of this document. For example, in the Indian Constitution, there are 6 broad categories of fundamental rights which account for a minimum of 23 articles in this Constitution. These are called fundamental because a healthy functional society can exist only in the presence of these rights. They are available for people to enjoy as well as to claim against the government. And now let's discuss the nature of a constitution. Firstly, binding on all. Any constitution from across the globe must possess this nature because this makes it a fundamental document. A document that applies on everybody. All are equal before the law and all laws apply equally and fairly. In other words, a constitution must uphold the principle of rule of law. The second nature, based on public legitimacy. Public legitimacy means acceptance of the public. This is a crucial component since it can positively contribute to power relations, peace, order, and development. For example, in the Indian Constitution, the preamble begins with the words, "We the people." This is used to indicate the legitimacy of this document. It intends to mean that the ultimate authority always lies with the people. The third important nature, difficult to change than ordinary laws. Constitutions age with time, and some of its provisions may require changes. These changes are made to the document through a process called amendment. In most constitutions, amendment is a complex procedure filled with structural and procedural formalities. These formalities were written by the constitution makers intentionally to discourage the future governments from making arbitrary changes to this fundamental document. And the fourth point, meet internationally recognized standards. There is no mandate or compulsion that the Constitution must have internationally recognized standards. But most constitutions aspire to include these standards to secure a place in the international dialogue. For example, during the drafting of the Indian Constitution, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights is said to have played a quintessential role in contributing to various articles in the Indian Constitution. And the fifth point, define political community. A constitution generally defines certain values and ideals that are expected to be followed by the governments and the people of that country. These values and ideals are nothing but definition of a political community. For example, in the Indian Constitution, the preamble has the words sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. These are nothing but values that define the political community to the outside world. The last point, set developmental goals. A constitution is a document written for posterity. It not only defines the rights and duties, but also provides developmental goals to be achieved by a country in the future. For example, in the Indian Constitution, the directive principles of state policy contains all the goals that the country must achieve in the future. And with this, we have come to the end of today's video. In the upcoming episode, we'll deal with the constitutional history of the Indian Constitution.